Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. It's Wednesday. It means it's time for another Leadership Toolkit. This is your definitive leadership growth podcast. It's your opportunity to tune in, maybe be a fly on the wall, listening to people's successes from all different verticals of business from all over the world, from small entrepreneurial startups to big corporate giants. I've got amazing people on the show that can help you break through walls and see more success. So we sometimes talk about successes. We sometimes talk about their failures so you don't have to repeat them, because that's the best thing, is not repeating those things. And so today is no different. I'm very excited. I've got William Davis on the show. He's a leadership expert. He's a speaker. He's a mentor dedicated to helping executives and managers and aspiring leaders develop their skills. He is absolutely awesome. He helps people develop confidence and leadership skills and dives right in with them. So I'm going to bring him on the show today. William Davis, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. And thanks for joining me today, William.
Thanks, Mike, for having me.
Absolutely. If you would just dive in. I know we started to talk just a moment as we were chatting before we started up here, and you were saying you spent a lot of time in corporate America, and now you're helping with all that experience, helping others grow and succeed and see massive successes. So if you would just give us that background and the elevator pitch on how did you start? How did you get to where you are now?
Well, I spent 38 years in corporate America, as you mentioned. And last May, I just determined, there's a lot of things about leadership and how we focus on it, how we handle it, how we deal with it, how we help people with it, that is not good. It's just counter to what I was taught and how I had always lived my career. And so I asked my wife, how would you feel about me giving back the last few years of what I considered, working time. And she said, great. And so I have been on a mission to write books regarding the leadership philosophy that I used for 38 years, and have been going around the world speaking to various groups about, leadership and how it needs to be retrained. It needs to be refocused if we're going to be successful.
Absolutely. And one of the questions, I want to come right out of the gate really strong on this, because I love the fact that you have so much depth and experience in a corporate environment. And so when you were moving in, thinking back, because, we all start somewhere, right? We start on that ground level, we get in, and thinking back to when you got your first leadership opportunity. What sort of training was offered then? Because if we're going, 40 years back, we're talking probably mid 80s, early 90s type of deal, where you're saying, okay, hey, I'm getting in, which is a different time than where we're at now. Were they offering, more succinct, like leadership training programs, management training programs? What is it that you were put through early on in the beginning?
No, and unfortunately, it was the same kind of thing that we do today. It's really management training, and we called it leadership training. So my foundation came from experiences with the organization in college that I was a part of in high school. And again, just observation of people that I worked for, worked around, saw how they related to people, saw how those relationships either built or fell apart, and tried to adapt, again, based upon that. Now, early on in my career, I was an absolute nightmare, because I was just like every other young man. Hey, this is all about me. I'm going to build my career. And if I have to step on you to get there, no problem. But as I got older, as I really started to view people as humans that have frailties, have desires, have wishes, have wants, have goals, it helped shape that, this is not about me. As a leader, this is not about me. This is about them. And that's what I tried to focus the rest of my career on, is helping my people flourish. Because at the end of the day, when I walk away, my greatest legacy is the people that I leave behind, and were they successful, and are they able to then pass on those traits to other people?
I love that, man. I got to jot a note down here so I don't forget to ask, because you hit on two or three things I really want to cover here. So one thing you mentioned early on, just right at the very beginning of the conversation, William, was you said, okay, hey, we were really training management
Yeah.
under the title, under the guise of leadership. And I've asked this question before. I'm curious what your take is on it. What's the difference? Because like leadership, I think becomes, and I'm guilty of this. I ask questions, then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I got, but leadership, I think so often can take on what our experiences are. So we help to flesh out that definition through our
Yeah.
careers. So for you, what's the difference between leadership and management?
Well, managers are important, and I've always looked at them from the perspective of they deal with the day-to-day tasks, the
Mhm.
things that get us from A to Z, right? Help us be successful in our work. And there's a lot of managers that are leaders, but when we're truly looking at leadership, in my opinion, leadership is specifically about the growth and care of your people. They don't have to necessarily be a direct report of yours either. If they're in your hemisphere and you have any relationship to them and you deal with them in a day-to-day basis, you need to make sure that they're being taken care of. Mike, as well as I do, that the majority of people when they leave, it's not because of the money or the company, it's because of the person they work for. And
Sure.
so, that dynamic, you talk about retention issues, you change that one dynamic and a lot of your retention issues go away.
That brings to mind a statement I remember hearing years ago. They said people don't quit companies,
Yeah.
they don't quit cultures, they fire managers.
Right.
And so, um, a few things that I want to dive into there. First off, you brought this up as we were chatting just before we started, and you said this again. So I'm curious, when you're saying, hey, if somebody's in your hemisphere,
Mhm.
somebody's in your orbit, so to speak, right? What do you mean by that?
Well, so various times during my career, I would have teams, and then they would work directly with people from other departments or other groups.
Mhm.
And they spend a lot of time, within my world, dealing with my people and so forth. So it was very common for me to touch base with them, just say, "Hey, how are things going? What are you working on? What do you desire to do?" Again, trying to make sure that the interaction that they had with my people wasn't going to be interrupted by external factors, maybe in their group or with their manager or whatever. So to the extent I could, I help make them understand, hey, you got a sounding board here that you can trust, that you can work with, and I will do everything I can to help you grow and do the things that you want to do to be successful.
So let me ask you, what happens if you're sort of cross training from people that maybe aren't your direct reports?
Right.
Because I love the philosophy and I love the thought that you're sharing here. For me, as far as leadership, when I came up in the world, right, it was
Mhm.
always like you handle the people that talk directly to you, and if somebody else you don't talk to them, you don't handle. What if you are? Because I think relationship is super powerful.
Yeah,
Relationship
it is.
is, I mean, it is the most powerful thing
Yep.
that you can nurture in a leadership environment. So what happens if you're sort of cross training or cross departmentally? Because we engage with people there, and someone confides in you that they're either struggling personally or professionally. From a leadership standpoint, for someone that's not a direct report, how do you address that? How do you approach that conversation?
Well, again, it depends upon what their philosophy is, right? If you have a leader, quote manager that has the mentality that you were talking about,
Sure.
leave my people alone. You have to be a lot more delicate. You have to do it a lot more diplomatically, and help them understand that this is a person under their care, and it's not just the work that the person does; it's the whole whole person, right? The whole human.
Sure.
And there are outside factors that then create what kind of character and personality and disposition that they bring to the workplace. And what I would do is I would sit down with them and I would just say, okay, let's think about if this was you and I wouldn't use the exact same scenario, but I would do a different scenario that was what I thought was equal in despair. Or
You're saying
whatever,
with the other leader, you'd
with
sit
the
down
other
with the
leader.
other
Yes,
leader.
sir.
You're not sitting down with the
Right,
direct
right.
report. Got it.
And I would say to that other leader, what if this was you? How would you like to be dealt with? And they would, majority of the time it would get them start thinking, hey, yeah, right, I need to step back and maybe think more holistically about the person, right?
Sure.
Not just they're here. But with the person that I was dealing with that had the other leader, the other manager, I would go as far as I could in regards to letting them know there's support structure in place, right? I'm a sounding board. If it was financial, if it was medical, if it was, something else, I would look for resources within the company that I could help direct them to say, guys, look, this is something that you can go to and they can help you out. And then I did actually have a couple of situations throughout my career that it was dire enough that I went to HR and just said, we have this situation that we need to deal with because I'm afraid of what the consequences might be if we don't.
Sure. Well, and a couple things that I'm hearing you say, and you'll pick up on this, William, just to make sure that I'm hearing what you're laying down. I will always repeat stuff. So one of the things that I really like that you brought up is in the moment, that person, if that person views you as a leader and as somebody they can confide in and have a conversation with, you're not necessarily stopping right there and solving the world's problems with them, but you're saying, hey, there's resources. One of the things, and I'm reading between the lines here, you're making sure that individual knows that they're heard. They're seen and they're heard. I see you, I hear you.
Yeah.
And then you're having that conversation with their leader. And because it is different, and I think it's valuable to note, and I always advise people, like, listen to this podcast with a pen or pencil in your hand.
Yeah.
If it's different having a conversation like laterally with other leaders than it is, crossways or whatnot to somebody else's direct report.
Right.
And for me too, and I hear what you're saying so often, I've had situations arise and there's certain people, and maybe sometimes they may feel safer with you cross-departmentally because you are not their direct leader. And they're like, hey, I'm going to drop this little nugget and see if I can get some conversation or some connection out of you. Yeah. And I think it's important that when you have those conversations, when it comes back to the lateral discussion with their leader, their manager, the person they directly report to, always recap it, right?
Yeah.
Hey, here's what I suggested to them and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not trying to solve their problems, right? And
right.
It's exactly what you said. You're seen, you're heard, and I care. It's important to me because it's important to you. I may not understand why they have such a passion about the thing that's challenged them, right? Or that's concerning them, but it's got to be important to me because it's important to them. And again, going back to being seen, being heard, understanding that I relate to the fact that they've got something going on that they're dealing with, and I'll work with them to get through it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I've got to help them come out on the other side good, good from a professional perspective, good from a personal perspective, not damaging their reputation, not damaging the relationship with the team that they're working with or working for, and hopefully not damaging their career.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think those are all super important.
Yeah.
Before I get too far away, I've had this on the screen a couple of times and I always get like a ways into the show. For anybody that maybe, whether you're watching or listening to the show on Spotify or YouTube, maybe you're tuned in on Apple iTunes after the fact on the podcast, I always want to point out, as we go through these conversations, these leadership conversations, like William's bringing an absolute wealth of knowledge. I want to make sure and point out, you can connect with him on his website. It's at William C. Davis. That's all one word, no spaces. William C. as in Charles, Davis.net. Also, if you want to connect with him more personally, you can always connect one-on-one. It's William Charles Davis, again, no spaces, on LinkedIn, if you look that up. So great way to connect. Certainly, I checked out your website a little bit as we were talking, and just talking about, transformational leadership. And just like what we're talking here is, it's like, it's not about having a title so much as it is about changing people.
Right.
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 So
yes, some of the greatest leaders I've ever worked with never had a title. And it was because of the fact of how they were able to deal with people, generate those relationships. And that, what you said early on is key to everything I do, speaking and writing, is building that relationship. You've got to build the relationship if you hope to be successful as a leader.
Absolutely. I've heard it said, in leadership, every leader changes something, right? We come in and we all have, especially lots of people that are in leadership. I don't know what percentage, but there's a lot of people that have that sort of type A personality. And we do, even at times, even if they're not a type A, sometimes you have to step forward in leadership. So everybody, every leader that I've ever been engaged with changes something. One of the important things to realize, and it's like what you're saying, is the transformative leaders, the best leaders, change people.
Yes.
It's not about changing things. One thing I want to dive in on also, because we had talked about, and you mentioned this, was like, okay, hey, you're good at this job, so we're going to make you a manager of this job. Oh, you're good at sales, we're going to make you a sales manager. Oh, you're good at this particular task, and so we move you into this leadership role. And one of the notes that you sent me, and I know that statistically somewhere between 78 and 80% of Americans believe we have a leadership problem.
Yes.
And so can you expand on that? Why are so many people maybe dissatisfied or frustrated? They're saying, hey, we got a leadership problem and we need to fix this. One of the struggles is I think a lot of people don't know how to fix it. They're problem spotters, not problem solvers, right? So why is that? Can you expand on that for us a little bit?
Well, I think one of the problems is, and the biggest problem is, the fact that we don't do a good job of choosing who our leaders are going to be. Particularly in corporate America, somebody has success leading a project. Somebody has success making sure work is done every day successfully and maybe to the financial benefit of the company. We automatically think that makes them a leader. And that has nothing to do with leadership. Yes, you have, what I call functional success as an individual, but then there's a separate leadership ability that leads to leadership success. And one of the things I always did when, somebody would come to me and talk about, what can I do in my career? Where can I go? And expressed a desire to be a leader, I would ask them, why do you want to be a leader? And they would generally sit there and think the title and the pay. And it's like, well, that's the wrong reason.
Sure.
If you're after title, if you're after pay, that's not a good reason. But the key for me was I made sure that I saw them in moments around family and friends and saw how they treated those individuals, particularly in times of stress. Because if they treated people that they were the closest to in a horrific manner, disrespectful, arrogant, angry, whatever, I didn't have a good feeling that they would be able to be a leader that could treat people underneath them that they didn't have that relationship with in a respectful and caring way, that they were looking out for the long-term best interest for those people.
No, I think that's really, really valuable. And you touched on something here. You were saying, hey, what are the reasons that people want to get into leadership? And I agree with you. I think there's a certain there's a certain stature, maybe a view that people when we're wanting to get into leadership. And I know I'm just as guilty of it. It was like, even starting at a young age, I coached hockey teams, and there was something about being the head coach, right? You got the title to be the head coach. You got to make all the decisions. And it's like, but is that really what all this is about? The reason that somebody becomes a head coach, the reason that somebody gets put into that role is because of things like their vision for the team. the way they're developing the kids, the way they're not just developing, and I'm talking youth sports, right?
Yeah.
The way they're developing their players, we'll
Right.
say. I go instantly where my experiences in my mind, but then the other thing that's important is developing their other coaches, right? It's not just about simply
Right.
developing the players or the kids. It's about how are they developing the other coaches. And sometimes we just don't have the experience for it yet. Sometimes, I mean, I think you really hit on it when you said, hey, we don't do well choosing leaders. There are some people that are meant to be a great right seat.
Yep.
They're not meant to be the tip of the spear.
Right.
So let me ask you a question. What if you have somebody that really wants to go into leadership? They really want that, like, I want to be the tip of the spear. How do you, and like, hey, they just don't have the personality for it. They don't have the traits for it. Maybe they won't ever be the tip of the spear. How do you have that conversation as a leader with that individual?
Well, I just very specifically say, okay, I will work with you. I'll help you, try to reach your desire, but I'm going to start you small. You're going to have to prove to me that you're doing this for the right reason. And again, oftentimes what I would do is I would give them a smaller project, smaller team, smaller responsibility,
Sure.
and see how that worked out and how things flowed with the team, and were they able to build a dynamic and be successful, and then would revisit, okay, what did you think, how did this go for you? Because as you're pointed out, sometimes people get in that leadership role and say, oh golly, this is not all that it was cracked up to be. I may not want to do this.
Signed up for what?
Yeah, signed up for what? So to me, that's one of the things you look for is if you're hesitant about whether they have the ability, start them small. Don't throw them in the lake and say, I hope you can swim, because that has such detrimental effects, not just for them, but for everybody around. Because at that point, you start to lose trust in people, because they're like, you really put them in charge? What were you thinking? Right. And whereas if you can help the flow of them getting into a rhythm and getting into an understanding of what they're doing and what what's important about what they're doing, it helps them. And people will say, oh, well, we're trying to nurture people, right? Maybe that can happen for me.
Sure.
And so that was one of the things that, and I just helped them understand, look, I'm not saying no, but we're gonna slow this down a little bit and see how well not only you like it, but how well it works.
Really good. And there's a couple questions that stem from that. And anyone who spends enough time with me, it's like, oh, we're going to go down this question path. No, just kidding. We're going over here. So I've got two that I want to ask, and not in this specific order, but one of the things that you commented on, you said, hey, it's important to show that you're nurturing people. I think there's something to be said when you are bringing people up, you're nurturing them, you're training them, of sort of passing the leadership torch.
Yes.
People can see, okay, hey, you've been in this role for a long time, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, maybe 5 years, right? And you're actually investing, growing the person, teaching them the necessary skills, teaching them the necessary postures that you got to take as a leader. I think there's a lot of value in that, when you are, like I said, passing that sort of leadership torch, because it says to other people in the organization, as you were saying, hey, we'll groom people here. We promote from within. We're going to grow people. And because we grow people, that's how our teams grow, and that's how our business grows. So do you have some specific ways that you might, in addition to that, what would you recommend of growing future leaders, bringing people into that space? Do you do that? Like, hey, we've got, 10 people and there's a lottery, one person gets the shot. How do you grow and cultivate to build future leaders in your organization? Because the more leaders, real leaders that you have, the more that you can impact people, and the more a business will grow, I assume. Right, William?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I always like to do, I mean, we talk about meetings that we have with our teams, and we often get into silos, right? You have this responsibility, you this have, report out on just that. Well, what I like to do is I'd like to bring the team in when we had meetings, and let's talk about what we're doing and why. To me, one of the biggest disservices that we do our people is we do not discuss the why of what we're doing. And to me, that is so important, because when they understand the why, one, they are much more apt to think outside the box. They're much more laser focused on, let's do this the best way, not just the way that people are saying to get it done, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much information out there now, and people are so creative, and they've got so much experience, either YouTube videos or classes or trainings or whatever. I don't want to limit somebody's ability to be creative. And so when we talk about the why, then people now start understanding a little bit more about leadership mindset, right?
Sure.
Here's what we're doing, but here's why. And this is what it leads to. And they become invested, right? They become invested, and it's important to them. And when it's important to them, they're going to do above and beyond what normally would happen. That's been my experience.
Sure. Do you ever run into leaders that understand the what way better than they understand the why as leaders?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you
We could have a whole show on that one, Mike.
well, just a one-off here. What are one or two things that you might suggest that either the company or other leaders do when you run into that situation?
Well, level setting at a higher level, just
Mhm.
instead of just a small group, to me, always buys you a lot of stuff, because everybody's hearing the same thing. Everybody's now on the same page, where you don't have individuals off on their own agenda. And tell me if I'm not going down the right path of where you were thinking. But again, ensuring that people understand the why holistically, and again, don't try to take their own little slant on it,
Mhm.
is very important, because at the end of the day, yeah, we've got our piece of the world, but it's got to fit with this piece of the world over here, and it's all got to come together and work. And so understanding the why, let's level set at the highest level possible. Don't be afraid to come back and revisit it, and make sure that people are still engaged in the right path.
No, and I think that's really important. And that's actually you said, "Hey, I don't know what path I'm going down." Sometimes I don't know what path. I just that's where it hit me, and I'm like, because we end up, I think, so often in organizations, especially if we're the CEO, or it's our organization, we're an entrepreneur, and maybe you only have 10 people that work for you, or maybe you have 1,000.
Right.
And I think one of the hard pills to swallow is oftentimes we will, we're as the leader of the organization, we're going to the other people that are supposed to be leaders in our organization. We're saying, well, hey, why aren't they doing this? Why are we not achieving this goal? How come we're not getting the result we want? And I think it's a hard pill to swallow, to realize we may not have been effective in communicating the why to those people. And if we didn't do that, they can't communicate the why to everybody else.
Right.
Because I think you're spot on with, people want to know why they're doing something. People
Yeah.
will, they'll go on a crusade with you if they know why they're doing it.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Um,
And to the communication piece of it, I mean, I can't tell you how many times throughout my career, we would have a overall meeting, and everybody kind of get the landscape of what we're doing, and so forth. And then going forward, you would have just these little groups of people that would hear information, and never
mhm.
get shared. And then you come back together, and it's like, oh no, we changed that. Oh, when? You know, you
Yeah.
didn't communicate it to anybody. What were, how are we supposed to know? And so the communication aspect of it, is got to be uh, key, and it's got to be a priority, And again, oh, well, I don't want to communicate it to that level of person. Well, they're doing the work. If they're doing the work, they need to know. And you're going to end up being a whole lot better off if you share it with them than if they have to try to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, I've never understood that. I've never understood well why it's like, well, we've got to keep it at this level. If you, and one of the best organizations that I've worked for in my entire career, the dealership, as I mentioned, we were talking before, that I'm with now, the McCloskeys, they do a really good job. And it's funny because there's not really, I don't know the best way to put this, William, but it's like there's not really a way to over communicate. We just communicate, and people get worried about over communication, and it's like, no, right about the time that somebody is about to vomit because they're like, oh my gosh, if I hear that again, then if I hear one more time what the monthly or yearly goals are, I'm just going to throw up. You go, well, wait a minute. That's about the time that most people are starting to get it. And especially throughout the organization, people are saying, okay, hey, I understand what the yearly goals are. I understand why we're doing it. I understand where we're headed. Understand that not everybody is you. I think that's one of those things that's important in leadership, is just because I get it also, it's my job to continue being consistent. And the more that the organizations I've been in, the more we communicate those things over and over again, the more people really do start to understand it.
And I agree with, communication for communication's sake can oftentimes be confusing, can oftentimes be annoying. Communication has to have purpose and value.
Oh, absolutely.
Every communication you have with people in the corporate world has to have purpose and value. And if you don't have purpose and value in it, keep your mouth shut.
Or send it in an email.
Or send it in an email. That's exactly right.
So two other questions I for sure want to hit on while we're chatting today. And man, thank you so much for spending time with me today. It's been a great conversation.
I loved it. Thanks.
Yeah, couple of other questions, and before I get there, one other reminder for anybody that might be watching or listening to the show on the podcast, you can certainly connect with William. It's williamcdavis.net. So if you're interested in connecting with him for consulting, speaking, executive summits and workshops, you do those as well, right, William?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you can check that out. William C. Davis, C as in Charles.net. There's no space in that. And also on LinkedIn, again, William Charles Davis. So linkedin.com/n/William Charles Davis, no spaces, no dashes, and you will find him to connect with him. So a couple of things that we've said throughout the show, and this is one of those that it's like hindsight, I should have asked earlier, but one of the things we talk about, like, hey, if we want our people to see success, if we want our organizations to see success, we got to have that real strong leadership and that strong leadership success. How do you define leadership success? Because that's a heavy intangible. If I'm looking at it as the key point man, the leader in the organization, how can I define leadership success? Can you give me a few things that I might look at, 2 or 3, either KPIs or questions you might ask to help define that success of a leader?
Well, I would say the first thing is your leaders have to understand that their team, the people they work with, are not their competition, right?
That's good.
So when you understand that and you now buy into the fact that my team is my gauge of success, then I work with them in such a way, individually and collectively, to energize them, engage them, again, helping them understand the why, making sure they have support both in and outside of the workplace. And as I build those relationships, then I gauge success based upon, are your people engaging you, having that dynamic back and forth to make sure that they say, hey, I've got this issue. What can we do? And as opposed to trying to go off and solve it on their own or feel like they're out in the field by themselves. So to me, it's the relationship between you and your people individually and collectively as a group. Is that healthy? And they're going to, we all make mistakes, right? And,
Sure.
things are going to go wrong. The key to it is, though, how do you recover? And you help your people recover by understanding that you're not going to throw them under the bus. You're going to give them the opportunity to, let's get this done correctly. Let's learn what we did wrong. And hey, it doesn't affect your career in a negative manner. Let's move forward. So that dynamic, that's the way I really gauge it, Mike, is do you keep that dynamic where your people feel safe and they feel like they can grow and build a career under you, or do they feel like they're fighting you at every turn?
I love it, man. So if I distilled that down to three things, here's the notes I took. And I love the stuff you share, William. It's tangible, it's real, like it's just very down to earth. So I appreciate that about the way you communicate. One, as you said, understand that your team is not the competition.
Yeah.
I think so often, man, as leaders, we like, you want to hang on to the brass ring, right? So I got to be that tip of the spear. And it's like, sometimes somebody may be better suited for that job than even you as the leader. I think that is absolutely a brilliant statement. The second thing that I noted is, and you said, do you have a healthy relationship? Are people coming to you? Are you always having to go to them, or are they coming to you and sharing this? And then the third, which I pulled out of there, was you said, hey, that when mistakes happen, you're able to move forward, that people feel safe and that they're growing.
Yeah.
And so absolutely phenomenal.
I have never in 38 years seen anybody either working for me or working around me that has intentionally screwed up. Right?
Yeah.
They're trying to do the job the best they can. Sometimes things go wrong.
Absolutely.
And the philosophy I always shared with my people is we win together, we lose together. Right?
100%.
Something goes wrong, it's all hands on deck to let's get this thing fixed. Right? The person who was responsible for it takes the lead. They tell us what they need to get, help wise to get it fixed, but we get it done. And at the end of the day, that helps build the cohesion that, and again, this was one thing I always told people: do not ever come to me and try to throw somebody under the bus. I do not allow it on my team. I do not allow it, because that is counterproductive to what we're trying to do, as not only workers, but as, people with, lives, right? I have always tried to pattern my leadership philosophy after the golden rule: do unto others, right?
Absolutely.
I am not going to allow somebody to be disrespectful or be disrespected.
No, that's a really strong point, because the key there is, no matter what happens, it's going to damage a team dynamic.
Yep.
If someone's trying to do it, it's like, look, let's just stop that. And
at the end of the day, I always told them, look, guys, I lead this group. So if there's a hit that's going to be taken, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it. I'm not going to offer somebody up as a sacrificial lamb to try to make myself feel better or look better. That's not the role. And again, that's what leadership is. Leadership is owning what your team does and the growth of your team and the health of your team. And
absolutely,
again, it's just something that we don't have classes for that. And one, I don't know that there's a class that could be taught, because to me, there's an innate, characteristic, whether somebody can be that way towards others or they can't. Sure. And that goes back to what I was telling you earlier. I always wanted to see them around friends and family, to see how they treated them. Yeah. Because to me, that was a tremendous clue as to whether they had that nature that they could be kind and generous and caring for people.
Absolutely. And it's worthwhile to see how the opinions of friends and family, when they're around that person too, it's both ways. Yeah. So last thing I'm curious about, because we've talked a lot about, successes. How do you make successes? How can we navigate this? How can we grow a team? How can we win and get the results we want and so forth? What is, with all that being said, and folks, get your pens and pencils ready. With all that stuff being said, like we all want to enjoy success. Like you said, hey, no, I've never had somebody that worked for me, worked with me, anything that like they deliberately wanted to mess things up. However, either in your career or with other people that you have worked with in a consulting capacity or whatnot, you've had a lot of different experiences. What's the biggest leadership mistake that you see people make?
Boy, no pressure there. I would say first and foremost is they do not look at their as people, as human. They
Mhm.
look at everything from the financial bottom line perspective, right? And it's at the end of the day, can this person provide what we need to do in order to build that bottom line? Yeah, my question has often been, Mike, is how much money is enough for companies? How much money is enough for people? When we went to this matrix, uh, you know, dynamic of rating people, and we had to have so many in this tier and so many in this tier and so many in this tier. Um, we forgot people are human, right? And they have needs and they have expectations and they have wants and desires. And we cannot boil them down to how they financially affect the bottom line 100%. We've got to look at them and say, how do we help them survive corporately and personally in order to navigate life? And knowing that when they come in some days and they are in a horrible mood or somebody's been crying or whatever, I understand they've got an issue going on that's important to them. I may not understand it. It may not seem critical to me, but it's important to me because it's important to them. And they're a human that I have to help them, uh, you know, maintain a level of understanding that people care. You're not just a person number or an asset or a digit or whatever. We care. And that is something that I think corporately we have lost. And we lost it long before the pandemic.
Sure.
And I could get on a crusade about the whole financial market, but we've got to get back to understanding that people are human. They have needs, they have desires, and we've got to be more sensitive to the fact that they need support.
I think that's really powerful. And I mean, and I know it's a big question. Like when I love talking to
Great
guys like you,
question. Mm.
William, and saying, okay, hey, what's this that either people make or you make? And as you're describing this, as much as I would hate to say it, like I've been guilty of that.
Oh, I
You
have
know,
to. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, well, I mean, starting from a young age, as I was talking like youth hockey coach, instead of becoming like, what is the best thing that can happen for this young man or young woman to help them grow as a middle schooler or high schooler
Mhm.
school life, it becomes about, well, how do we win the trophy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It was 30. I was 35, Mike, before I woke up,
Yeah,
right? To the, hey, you're doing this wrong.
yeah.
Mm.
No, I think that's really, really powerful, William. So as we come to the tail end here, a couple of reminders for everybody. First off, William, thank you so much for your time,
Hey, I
your
enjoyed it. Thank
your
you.
yeah, your candor, and just like I said, the way you share is very, very genuine, very digestible. So it's good to have a conversation with you. Couple reminders for everybody out there in podcast land. Again, you can connect with William and check out his offerings, for consulting, for seminars, for speaking, anything that you want to connect with William for. It's williamcdavis.net. Also, if you want to connect with him more personally, and I always recommend with people, like, don't just start firing, connection requests. Send him a little note and so forth on what it is and why you want to connect, maybe that you saw him on the show and so forth. He's on LinkedIn at William Charles Davis. I'll have all of his other links. I mean, you've written, actually, as we come to the tail end, do share what are some of the books you've authored, and then some final thoughts for us today, William.
Well, the first book I wrote was called Leading Without Managing, right? And it's basically it's helping you understand, or I'm sorry, managing without leading. I don't even know the name of my books. But anyway, it talks about the difference between boss, manager, and leader, right? We use those terms interchangeably, and they're
Sure.
not. They're three different dynamics, and I go into that. The second book I wrote was building off of that. It was building genuine relationships. And I really, it's building genuine relationships is the critical,
Sure.
right? Because people know whether you're genuine or whether you're fake. And then I actually, just for fun, I just wrote a kind of a spy novel or a mystery novel, Blood on the Prairie.
Okay.
And so it's a kind of a fun one. It's going to be a
Fiction,
series.
nonfiction?
Nonfiction. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fun.
But I'm headed to Poland tomorrow, and I'll be there, and then going to France, speaking
Awesome.
both places. So,
well, safe travels to you. And if you would hang out for just a moment, and I'm going to go ahead and close this out.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to bring us to a close for another episode of the Leadership Toolkit with my new friend, William C. Davis. So again, check out williamcdavis.net. You can connect with him, William Charles Davis on LinkedIn. And just, man, what a wealth of knowledge and what a good conversation. So if you want to learn, like, he's been doing this for so many years and he's so good at it, the way that he speaks and connects, I would encourage you to connect with William, for one. For two, if you want to learn and grow from somebody that has done it, I would encourage you to connect with him. So just great info on today's show. Also, do me a favor, everybody. As you watch the show, one of the things I always have an ask at the end, and if you would do me a favor, just throw some thumbs up on whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Spotify, whatever platform you're on where you might consume your podcasts and get your information. Throw some thumbs up on it, share it out. I always send a weekly newsletter that recaps the show and kind of what I got out of it. I write a weekly blog. So if you'd like to connect in any of those ways, that would be awesome. Most importantly, because this show is about growing yourself and it's about growing the people that are around you. It's about affecting people and growing them and helping them come up in their journey. So if you know somebody that would gain some knowledge out of this show, do me a favor and just share the show directly with them. DM it to them, copy the link on whatever it is, and send it to that individual. Not to say, oh man, you need to listen to this, you got to grow, right? But because there's an opportunity to learn and grow and say, hey, I was listening to this and it was awesome. William really hit on a bunch of really good points, and I would love for you to hear this. So share it with a friend, and that would be amazing. Also, if you ever need a leadership speaker, if you know somebody that would be great on the show, think of me. You can connect at mike@theleadershiptoolkit.com. Otherwise, until we speak next week, everybody, stay great. Talk soon.